Welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase to fall in love with the person you're supposed to kill.
This week, we're discussing We Hunt the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. The land of Araria sits void of the magic, and in its place, the arts, a deadly forest, expands over Araria's 5 caliphates. In Zafira's caliphate, a hunter has the power to enter the cursed arts and trap food for her people. In a world where the abilities of women have been called into question, Zafira takes great care to assure that no one finds out her secret. She is the hunter. But when Zafira is sent by a silver witch to find a book that holds the key to restoring Araria's magic and destroying the arts for good, she may not have another option. In another caliphate, the power-hungry sultan has sent forth his son, the Prince of Death, a skilled assassin, the seer, to kill the hunter and find the book himself. When the two meet on the island of Shar, a discovery that there is far more at stake than a sultan's orders, a huntress's pride, and a magical book are at stake.
Hello, folks. I'm Emberlyn, and boy, do I like a nicely seared shrimp on the Barbie.
I'm Caitlin, and I have 2 pirates who live rent-free in my head, and they refuse to leave.
What I would do to evict them.
I don't want to evict them. They're kind of nice.
What I would do to evict them from both of our heads. Just for a moment of peace, at least when I'm doing my job during the day.
Just so
sake.
that we can focus on the things we need to do instead of, I don't know, watching a show 80 million times a time.
It is so hard to be productive when you have 2 pirates in your head. I'll tell you that.
It is. All right, so we're talking about We Hunt the Flame. What did you think of the world building in this new book?
Amazing. I wrote a lot of swears at the beginning of my notes.
She did.
Because I had so much to say. I just freshly finished the book when I took these notes, so I was very excited to share my thoughts. This happened not even 2 or 3 hours ago, because that's when I finished the book. It's still fresh in my mind, so you guys have the benefit of that. But I really love this book. It sets itself apart from a lot of other popular fantasy books of the modern times in that it's in a world inspired by ancient Arabia. And I like that a lot because I feel like a lot of fantasies pay homage to Eastern and Western European aesthetics, those of Russia and England, more specifically, which colors a lot of these books the same hue. So it was refreshing to read something that didn't really follow that path. We talked at one point in a previous episode about the dark-light juxtaposition. It's a favorite trope of mine and yours. And I saw that bleed through in many ways in this book, more than I can probably count on my hands, but I'll name a few of my favorites. Between Altair's light and Nasir's darkness, Nasir's fire and Zafira's iciness, a Saracen's snow, and the Shah's desert, and I could go on and on.
The fire and the iciness, that was a good one.
It is. It's a special
That's a good
thing.
one.
Yeah. And then just some other favorite elements I'll name, just to put them out into the interweb. The mirages and the island's beasts that could shape-shift into loved ones, and the 5 sisters and the lion. So that's how I was feeling about it. How about you? What do you think of the world building?
Oh, I thought it was really cool. Again, it's based on ancient Arabia, which is something I've never read before and wasn't familiar with. And it did take me a while to get my head wrapped around it, just because I wasn't familiar with like how caliphate systems worked and all the terms that come with it. So the beginning did move a little bit slow for me, but that's not a negative, because I needed that time to like learn these new words and make them a part of my vocabulary and like learn, okay, what are caliphates? What do they do? What are sultans, and how are they different from caliphates and caliphs, and all of the Arabic words that were used throughout this book, which they're used throughout the entire book, but it was never in a way where I'm like, I don't know what that means. It was always like someone would say shukran, and then someone's like, I don't need your thanks, and I go, oh, so that one means thank you. So I liked how like she presented those words, like how she used that language throughout the book, but not in a way that makes it completely like I need to learn a whole new language to understand it. I thought her imagery was so cool and just so good throughout the entire book. The first one that really stuck out to me was on page 9. She says, the cold stung her nostrils, scented with metal and a hint of amber. And audibly, I was like, yes, because that is such a very specific feeling that I've experienced way too often growing up somewhere where it's cold and snowing 6 or 7 months out of the year. So it really captured that feeling of what I like to call a snot freezer. But Hafsah wrote it much more prettily than I ever could describe it. So I just things like that were really cool. I also liked that this was a fantasy world that no longer has magic, but we still get the hints and traces of it. Like, I feel like in a lot of fantasy books, it would be easy to enter the world where the magic is at its peak, and then we see it disappear, and that's like the second book is trying to get it back. I like that we're just immediately in this world and there's no magic, and that was cool. But I do like how you got to see the traces of it, and how it still lingered with each person has like their own little affinity to it.
Right.
I was a little thrown off at first when they begin their quest, because I thought the arts was going to be like this bigger challenge, since it was mentioned so much in the beginning, and how Zafira is always entering it and it's so dangerous and you hardly ever come out of it. So I was like, oh, so part of their quest is going to be them crossing it, and then the Silver Witch just makes it disappear for them, and I was like, okay, now we're on a ship. So, which is like fine, but I was so like thrown off. I was like, it's just God now? Like, that's not a problem. Yeah. But I thought that was really cool, like, just of it like always inching closer to them.
I love everything that you just said. I'm like laughing a little bit because I'm thinking about what it was like to grow up in the very cold, horrible, kind of frigid places that you and I grew up.
Yep.
Because we're two in the same, having lived not very far from each other. And I agree with you. Like, I think that she describes that feeling so well. And there were times when I was reading this where I thought, oh, I cannot wait to talk about how we know exactly what this is like in our episode. So I couldn't agree with you more on that front. Let's jump into some of our glows and grows about this book. Let's do Two Peaks and a Valley. You start. With your first peak.
I shall, as the thunder comes in.
Oh, good. We're both gonna die.
Yeah, we're both in the middle of a storm right now.
Yeah.
So my first peak was so this was the second time I read this book, and I mentioned it before, but I really loved all of the hints to each character's affinity word that maybe you don't necessarily pick up on the first time because you're not looking for it, but this time I was. So Zafira is obviously like this compass, like she always knows where she's going, she can't get lost. But so that was like a little obvious, and then Nasir had a sort of darkness to him with his like shadows that were mentioned, but I really liked the hints to Yasmin, Zafira's friend, being a seer, and most likely Dean too, given that like he dreamt about being taken on Shar before we even, well, no, it was after she learns about the Silver Witch, but like before she even knows she's gonna go there, he's like,
amazing. Yeah,
I had this dream that I was on Shar and I got taken by like something or whatever, and I was just like, this feels important. and then Yasmin telling Zafira, it's just such like an innocent line that makes way more sense this time. Yasmin tells Zafira that someday she'll find someone who will make her blush. She says, I know he's out there, that someone, probably as grumpy as you. He'll look into those icy eyes of yours and make you blush and wish you could begin all over again. I just know it. And I read that this time and I was like, oh, she's so right. And she saw it coming. So I thought that was really, it was a really cool element. What was your first peak?
Well, first I'll respond to your peak as the thunder rolls in. I actually didn't notice that Yasmin was a seer. I didn't notice that at all. So that's a really cool thing that you picked up on. I think that's really neat. And my first peak was just that I felt like Hafsah Faizal is just an incredibly talented character writer and master of dialogue. Yeah. It struck me so many times that I didn't really find any character in particular to be one-dimensional, nor did I find myself really disliking any one of them. It's been a while since I've reacted aloud to a book that wasn't to say like, oh brother, and like roll my eyes when a character has expectantly said something on the nose or cliche. And this never happened to me with this book. Like, yes, I was reacting aloud to the book, I mean, but it was always an exclamation, it was always to say, oh, I love that, or oh, I'm really sad now, So I loved that, and I loved that, the characters are in fact have so much depth to them that you can kind of actually pick up on their affinities, and that you've been able to do that in your second read. I love that. Anyway, at the end of the book, I find myself with a lot of favorite characters, so I think it's going to be hard to choose one to bequeath all my love upon when we talk about that later. Tell me about your second peak.
Well, real quick, when you said like all of like the things that you said like out loud, I completely agree. So I took notes like right in this book the first time I read it, and the amount of like little reaction like notes I put it's either there's so many sad faces in this book, specifically next to anything Nasir says or thinks. I'm always just like, oh buddy, or just like literally. There's a few times I wrote like in all caps, ah ha ha ha, because some of the lines are just so funny it's just so good. So I completely agree with that. My second peak was this is I've just realized the third enemies to lovers book in a row that we've read.
Wow.
And this one takes the fucking cake. Like, I really, really loved Nasir and Zafira's enemies to lover relationship. The amount of caps lock notes I have of them and the eye emojis and hearts that I drew in this book are off the charts. I really loved seeing both of them like slowly being like, do 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 do, Nasir's pretty. What? I should say. Like they both did it where like Nasir will be going around and being like, well, anyway, her icy blue eyes, and Zafira, oh my god, that's the first time I said her name in my head. Anyway, time to pretend that I still have to kill her. And just like Zafira, like at first he's just the Prince of Death, but then she's seeing all the parts of him that are human, like his emotions, and like starting to think, oh, I wonder if he doesn't like being called a murderer despite it being true. Just like little things like that. The scene where Zafira fights Nasir, like they get in a little argument that involves knives and blades and stuff. They end up, she ends up on top of him on the ground with a blade to his throat.
As she should.
As she should. I literally like put like a little bracket around that whole paragraph, and I put, Zafira, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me. Because I was reading it and I was like, has this awoken something in me?
There's certain scenes in books that remind me a little bit of that scene in Turning Red where Maymay is drawing the guy from the convenience store as a mermaid, and she just like stops and rolls out of her bed with the notebook and starts drawing more intensely and erotically. And I think that's literally all of us when we read that scene.
Yeah, that was I was like, ooh, I have to like fan myself. Like it was like they're fighting, but I'm like, girl, like the tension between these two characters, like it's good. But
tasty.
I really loved it. It was just very fun for me. It wasn't like, I liked it a lot because it wasn't like an enemies to lovers where I'm like, no, but like one of these people sucks. Why do you like him? There's a book that we read earlier on in this podcast that I won't name drop, but it was like that, and I hated it. And where this one was just like, you see them grow together. And I like that part of the enemies to lovers relationship where they're learning, even though they're on opposite sides, maybe they can see the other person's perspective. And I love that. Zafira is the first. Yeah. It's good. Zafira is the first person to see Nasir as human. So like seeing all of that was really cool. I loved the female gaze of Zafira watching him in the woods, like when he's shirtless and everything. Just her describing him and her being like, oh, I need to chill out. Like, I loved that. And then every time Nasir describes her eyes, it's so good. But specifically the line where he goes, if a poet were to describe them, he would say to look into her eyes was to see the sea's first glimpse of the sun, drinking its reflection in endless ripples. Or something like that. Like, this boy, I don't know, they were very fun for me, and I loved it.
I agree. I before we even go there, I feel like I have to agree, like 100%, because I feel like you're right. Like there was nothing like, I feel like it was the same case again, where it was like, okay, these people, they perhaps wronged each other equally, or maybe they just like don't have that same air of like, this one of these people is horrible, as many enemies to lovers tropes do, and as the book that we recently read did. But at the same time, I also think what's great about it is it doesn't do what other books do on the enemies to lovers category, and kind of make them so insufferable for each other that it's like, oh my god, like, relax, you know?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're kissing, and you're like, why?
Yeah, this is something that I think maybe, I've paid homage to Dance of Thieves as much as I could in our last episode, but maybe the Dance of Thieves didn't do exceptionally well, that I think that this book does so well. Faizal is just, I think, a genius when it comes to capturing what I think a very genuine and organic dialogue should be between two people that are kind of partaking in that enemies to lovers trope. So, everything you said, seconding.
Retweet.
Retweet. So, my second peak was just that, kind of going off what I just said. The writing was excellent. There were times when I feel like, especially now that we're reading so many fantasy books, that it's been pretty easy to sense an author's weakness as a writer. And I didn't find that easy with Faizal. I'm still struggling to. Actually, she's incredibly talented, and I can only really give her praise for her writing. She's just, a very strong writer. She's a very strong captivator of imagery and character building and world building, and creating dialogue that just kind of like cuts through you. It's just so smooth. It's like, damn, girl, she's smooth.
She goes for the throat, and it's
she
so
goes
awesome.
for the throat. Yes. So with all praise to Faizal, sitting at the top of my head, tell me a little bit about your valley.
Like, I don't want to, because I like this so much. So like my valley is like almost just like, it's like a me thing, kinda. So going into the book, I knew it was gonna be enemies to lovers. I found out about this book through TikTok, because Hafsah's on TikTok and she's fucking hilarious.
Go follow her.
I think she's so funny. Go follow her on TikTok, her Instagram reels. She's so funny. I love her. And so I saw one of these books, and I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it made me laugh out loud, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy her book. I don't know what it's about, but I'm just gonna do it. So I did. Mm-hmm. And it was on the enemies to lovers table in Barnes & Noble, and I was like, cool, that's fun.
The fact that there's even a table for that in Barnes & Noble now, like, wow. Okay.
I know. There's a lot of those books. So I knew it was going to be an enemies to lovers story. So knowing that, everything with Dean and Zafira, I felt like I couldn't get super attached to in the beginning. And there were some really sweet moments between the two of them, and some nice lines. Anytime they held pinkies, I cried a little bit. I'm not even joking. It was just very sweet to me. I think it's two people holding pinkies is something that can be so personal.
Yes, it is.
And I just thought that was so sweet. But I'm like, something's gonna happen to you though. Like, I know you're not the enemy, and so you cannot be the enemy to lover that she's gonna go through. So something's gonna happen. So I just knew I couldn't get attached to any of that in the beginning. And then I also just felt like he was just there to be killed for the plot. Like, I sat there and I tried thinking about it, like, why else would Dean be there other than to be, like, something that Zafira can think about, like, when she's at home. But she also has Yasmin and her sister. Like, there's that whole element to it, but why else was he there to go on the journey with her, if only to be killed, and for that purpose to be for her to finally meet up with Nasir and Altair? Like, I just felt like he was just there for plot, which is like, I'm not super attached to them, so like I don't care too much and I don't hate it, but
Right.
I was also just like, sorry, buddy. Thanks for making me emotional about Pinkies for 180 pages, but
Thanks
you're
for the
no longer
meds.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my valley.
But oh, how refreshing it is for a man to be a plot device for once.
That's the other thing, is that like I'm not even that mad about it, because it's always usually a female character being killed off for plot, and I was just like, oh, how the turntables
have turned. Yeah. So for me, I really searched. It was really hard to find. I could not find it for this one. It was really good. I enjoyed it through and through. It was hard to be cynical about it. I think after talking about it,
saying something.
It is.
For you to say, I can't be cynical about this.
I can't be cynical, but I can be, I think, a little bit of desire can course through my veins. Because I think now that we've been talking about this now for the past, how long have we been here right now? Like 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes fast. I think one thing I wish that had been touched on more, and I don't say this to be like, oh, feminism, in that very on-the-nose way that I sometimes can be. There was a point where there was this line, and I can't necessarily remember exactly what it was, but Zafira was having this internal dialogue about how she maybe was afraid to be a woman, or something to that extent. I can't find the line now.
It was something,
but I think...
Go.
No, go.
No, I think it was something along the lines of like, because Yasmin really wanted her to just be like, just take your hood off, like show our Khalif that like women can be this like strong people and everything, and Zafira's just like, no, I don't want to. And like, I can understand why she wouldn't, because given the world that she's grown up in, and like how she can just, by her doing literally anything just because she's a woman, because they blame the sisters for being women, that the magic is no longer there. Like, I can see her fears about that, about one decision just ruining her whole life. So I totally get what you're saying, but I also see Zafira's reasoning for it.
Oh, I wasn't done yet.
Okay. I don't even know if that added anything to it.
No. Well, no. I wasn't critiquing the line. I was actually saying I wish we talked more about that. I wish we talked more about that conflict for women in Middle Eastern culture. That was what really I wanted to hear more about. And I think we heard a lot about it in this book, and I was really excited about that. So I might be asking too much as a Western white lady who's like, I want more talking about women in this book, But I think I really enjoyed hearing about that conflict that she was facing, and I wanted Zafira to share more of that experience, more about those feelings of being afraid to be a woman, to be seen as a woman, to be a huntress. And that's something that I'd love to see in the second book. That's also something that I can understand why it wasn't expanded on more, because there really was quite a lot of that in the book already. But that was my take. Yeah.
If you had to have a valley.
Yeah. Basically.
All right. We do make Spotify playlists for every book that we read, which you can find on our Spotify account.
Yeah. Get on over there. Check it out.
Get on over there. What is a song that you would sing to help bring your Zumra, aka gang, together?
It was really hard to choose. There were quite a few that came to mind. First and foremost, Words of a King by Mintasha Atlas. Listen to it. I don't need to explain myself. Like, just go find it. Listen to it.
Gotcha.
And then another one that you'll find on every YA playlist paying homage to like a fantasy novel in the YA genre is As the World Caves In by Matt Maltese. It's a wonderful acknowledgement that as everything falls apart, we lay together. Fun fact about that song, if you've ever heard it, I've heard that Matt's written this about himself and his cat. I've also heard he's written this about Donald Trump and Theresa May. Either way, I think someone should check on him.
Yeah.
Are you well, Matthew?
I like that he wrote it about himself and his cat. I want to re-listen to it in that light. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of agonizing. I may go and stare longingly at my cat later tonight and listen to that song and cry. So we'll see what happens.
Sounds like a good idea.
How about you?
Well, first I said We're All in This Together from High School Musical. Because they are all in this together.
I'll do it.
real answer though is Game of Survival by Ruel. It's just the vibe of this book once they're on Shar and the whole gang is together. Uh, it's another like Umberland said, just go listen to it and you'll know exactly what I mean. Do you have a favorite quote from the book?
I had quite a few. It was really hard to choose. I was actually going through Goodreads after this since I didn't do many annotations for the audiobook that I listened to. Just trying to find one that captured how I was feeling about this book is really hard because there were so many times when I was just like, yes, this is the line I love. So the one I ultimately ended up choosing was, we're so quick to dismiss the sentiment as weak, but hearts beat for love, don't they? A life without purpose may be no life, but a life without love is nothing but an existence. And, this resonates, of course, for obvious reasons. But as I've been sitting here thinking about it more, I definitely think it's something that, when you think about Nasir's character explicitly, really stuck with me. Just the fact that this man, like, he says so many awful things about himself. He doesn't love himself. He's had no one to love him except for his mother. And he just absolutely kind of bakes that repulsion of himself into everything he does. Meanwhile, Zafira wants badly to be loved and can't even admit to herself. She's been, avoiding love her entire life. And it turns out it's kind of her reasoning for everything. And I think that once she's able to come to terms with that, and once maybe Nasir is able to hopefully, and this isn't something we've seen yet, but I hope we'll see in the second book, love another and perhaps love himself. I think that's what's going to help to grow these two characters, both in their love of each other and their love of themselves. Yeah, that was mine. How about you?
That's a banger if I've ever seen one. I feel like I feel like that one especially like really just encapsulates how Hafsah Faizal can just be like, so here's a sentence and it's gonna make you rethink a lot of things about your life and how you feel. And I remember reading that and being like, damn, that hits. Another, so like on that note, one that really like it made me like, I highlighted it and I had so many thoughts about it, is the quote, I just think that once you're bound to another, you change. That for the happiness of the one you love and for your own, you change without knowing it. And I really love that because how true it is. Because when you become close to another person, whether it's a partner or a friend or another family member, you really do change yourself without realizing it. Not in a way where it's like, oh, I have to change myself in order for this person to like me, because that's not it. But because you're so close to someone, you both have an impact on each other without realizing it. And I think the best way I can kind of almost explain it in a way that why I like it so much is just like the simple example of when you pick up on the phrases of your friends and family because you spend so much time with them. Like, I know there are certain things I say because my cousin says it, or my friend, or my mom says it. And, like, you're just made up of all of these pieces of the people that you surround yourself with. And I just think that's really cool.
Whoa!
That was beautiful.
Whoa! Wow. Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, honestly, I feel like with that take in mind, this really could be your hardest. I feel like you've made so many good points. I feel like I can't even. I'm like, where do we go from here? I feel like that's it. That it's over. The
podcast is over. Bye, everybody.
We've cue the music. We've solved the world's problems. Yeah, with that take. That is a big take, my friend. Wow.
I loved it. Well, and just to lighten the mood a little bit, honorable mention was when Kifa asked Zumra, and Nasir explains like it's what language it's from, and she like spits at him and she's like, I know what language it is. And Nasir wondered for the umpteenth time why he ever bothered speaking. It's so funny.
He's so much.
Like, I feel like those two quotes is like she can write something just so beautiful and thought-provoking, and then also like just a few pages later just write a line that just, it's so funny.
It's so funny. It's also relatable to the point where it's like, this is me every day at work. Like, this is me.
Why do I even bother speaking?
So I'm curious, did you see the line of the night reveal coming?
Actually, and I have receipts from my notes when I first read this book. I called it on page 81, and I'm so proud of myself.
Damn.
And,
Damn,
well,
girl.
even earlier on it, on page 44, I wrote, maybe the darkness took hold of the Sultan controlling him. And then on page 70, I was like, ooh, the Sultan's going to use the book for his own dark doing. And then I said on 81, I said, he learned all there was. There's a quote on page 81 that says, he learned all there was empowering himself with forbidden blood magic. And next to that, I wrote, Sultan equals lion. And I just throughout the rest of the book, anytime we would get a hint to it, I was always like, the Sultan's the lion. I'm telling you, like, there's a connection there. And I don't think that's a bad thing where it's something that you could, like, be like, oh, you totally see it coming. And for me, it was like, ooh, I think this could happen. And just being vindicated that I was right since the very beginning was very fun for me. And I had a good time with it. How about you? Did you see that coming?
I mean, no. It's cool that you saw that. I feel like you were definitely like reading between the lines, and like that's something that I should probably be doing more. I should probably also be reading instead of listening to the audiobooks more, so that I can actually like pick up on little details and not just be like listening while also like violently scrubbing my stovetop burner of all of its grease from my endless ramen noodle nights. But no, like I did not. Not until Zafira ended up in close quarters with the lion did I think about it, but otherwise I wasn't really like expecting it at all. I think like when they mention, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, when they mention some past evil sentient being having been defeated and whatnot, you kind of come to anticipate, like this guy isn't really dead. But in this book, I really wasn't like looking for it, and it's not to say that you were, it's just to say that I was fully like, I was like in a different plane of existence when I was listening to this book. That plane of existence was my kitchen, and I was scrubbing my burner, and it was also the plane of existence where I was just like so blindly engulfed in this book that I like had no idea what was going on around me. So, with that in mind, would you, Caitlin, avoid your mother for 5 years like Zafira did?
No, I love my mom. No, I would use this handy tool that God gifted us with called communication, and I would talk it out with my mom. There's no way I could. Zafira lives in the same house as her, and she just never goes to see her, and I couldn't do that. If I didn't live in the same house as my mom, there's no way I could ever not talk to my own mother. Mom, I know you're listening. I love you, and I will never ever stop talking to you. No, I couldn't. I love my mom too much. How about you?
Oh, I hate my mom, so it could be. No, I'm just kidding. I love my mom more than anything in the world. She's my rock. But like, no, I'm like still blown away by her restraint. Like, that's petty. like wow, like woof.
I just okay, Zafira doesn't talk to her mom because her mom killed her dad because her dad went a little crazy in the arts, and like. That's a lot to unpack, sure.
Yeah.
But if my mom killed my dad because he went a little crazy in the woods and came back as not himself and was going to kill me, like I didn't want to die, so like thanks, Mom, but also, damn, you killed Dad and I really like that guy. I still don't think I could ignore her. I think I would use that little communication tool we're all gifted with. And do that.
Talk it out.
Yeah. I don't know how she did it.
I do understand why she grieved the way she did. Like, it makes sense to me. Like you said, like, her mom did what she had to do. And I feel like for a long time after that, to avoid processing, Zafira just couldn't accept it until she really had to, until she realized she might not see her again when she, finally left for her journey. But yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with you. It's like it's just a weird choice. Like,
there's only one way to find out.
It's not like, it's not like I haven't like not been on speaking terms with my parents before. But like, I don't know if I could keep it up for 5 years. Like, one of us would have to say something to each other.
It's a
like,
long time.
I don't know. I really don't know how that would even, like, I like, if my dad and I stopped talking to each other, like, ever again, then I feel like he would eventually text me one day and say something like about like something he saw on CNN, and we'd just be right back into it again. I can't imagine ever like stopping talking to him or my mom. Yeah, no, it'd be so weird.
So, in this world of magic, how pissed would you be if you found out that your affinity is being a compass? Like, you're telling me that some people get to see the future and I'm just a walking GPS.
Yeah, I'd go batshit. I think I love it though in retrospect, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the main character in any YA novel typically finds out they possess some great badass power, more badass than anyone else's. It's always like something cool, like they can like summon light, or they can like see ghosts, or like they're like a really powerful wizard or some shit, you know? And in this case, Faizal was like, nah girl, you're Google Maps. Like, best wishes. Kindest regards.
Warmest regards.
And I see how in this situation it's absolutely incredibly useful, and it still makes her such a cool character because she's able to use it for good to help her people. But like, yeah, it's also like, wow.
But like in a future where maybe like the artist is gone forever and she's just like, I can't use anything, and they're like, Zafira, can you tell me where the ice cream shop is? Thank you. She's like, oh, I guess.
She's like, fine, it's that way. So, what's worse then, seeing an Ifrit as someone you love who has died, or seeing them for who they are?
I mean, if I saw someone I love who has died and I saw them just appear again, I think I would lose it. But I almost think on a deeper level, like, it's worse seeing the Ifrit for what it is, because then that implies that you don't have anyone close to you for it to mimic or imitate. And I would at least like to think that I have options for these guys to choose from, and if they're like, sorry girl, we got nothing for you, I'd be like, damn, my life sucks.
Ow. Yeah.
How about you?
Wow. Probably the first in my case, where the Ifrit is someone you love, because they can take the shape of someone you care for deeply, and I think in that case it would actually be my mother, and she'd probably ask me to hurry up and pay my phone bill. And she'd lurk toward me, and she'd whisper against my ear, did you have a chance to develop those 5x8 shots of your graduation pics and mail them to me yet, honey? Like she's been asking me to do for like a year now. She would crawl out of the sand, her limbs kind of like twitching, and she'd be like, have you started your student loan payments yet? And I'd be like,
I've come to ask you about your car's extended warranty.
Anyway.
So earlier you said you have a lot of love for these characters. Is there a one specific character that you would like to hold pinkies with that was your favorite?
Oh my god, I like don't have one. All of them. I mean, like, Altair for being Nasir's darling older brother, as we come to find. Every single thing he said was like so charming. Don't know what that means. Don't know what the alarm was for.
It's 8:30.
Kind of scary. Yeah, it's 8:30. I'm like, why did I set an alarm for that? We're gonna find out later, I bet. Anyway, just everything that he said was so charming, and I just found myself enjoying him so much. And then Benjamin for his wisdom and evolving into the Zumra dad, and just like being like, everybody stop it all the time. I loved him. And Kifa for being a badass.
Yeah.
And those were mine.
Yeah,
And it's 8:30. So it's your turn to say me. Tell me yours.
I seconded. All these characters were so good. I love ensemble books when like each character brings their own little element to it, but like none of them fall flat or none of them seem to be forgotten. I specifically, like, first I would hold pinkies with Kifa. I really loved her character. She takes no shit. She's there for her own personal reasons. She says, quote, she's here for magic, revenge, the usual. And I just love her.
What else is there?
What else is there? Magic, revenge, the usual. That's all you need. And she quickly bonds with Altair, specifically, but later she also bonds with Zafira. And I just, the whole chapter where she opens up to Zafira about her past and how these horrible things has happened to her, she has this wonderful line. She tells Zafira, we hunt the flame, the light in the darkness, the good this world deserves. Hope is not lost. And I really like this line because, one, I was like, hey, they said it. They said the title of the book. And two, I really feel like it just really sums up the message of this book, which is about not giving up when everything seems bleak. And I think that was a really undercurrent for the whole book. And then honorable mention to Altair, because he's my beloved. I love him. I am a sucker for characters who use humor, well, specifically are just funny and a delight. And he uses humor to deflect the complex and sad things that are actually going on inside of him, that he doesn't share with other people. He's very, you learn, at first he's just kind of like this guy who's just there to crack jokes and make Nasir's life just really like, he's just there to be the annoying guy. And eventually you kind of see there's more to him than that. But just every time he's on the page, he just says something funny or charming, and he just makes me feel jubilant.
Jubilant is a great word.
Thank you.
For the man you've described.
We should use that word more often.
Yes, we should. Yeah, let's put that on a shirt, everyone.
Just jubilant. You good? Are you being
Damn
attacked?
fly is back.
That fly from earlier?
Yeah, the fly from earlier. You'll learn about him later, folks. I'm worried for my well-being. Maybe that's what the timer was for. It was like, it's time for the fly to kill you.
Time for the fly attack.
A session. It's the fly.
The fly. The Prince of Death.
You know what time it is, folks. It's time for the fly that's been flying around everyone's room for the past 3 days to kill her. Cool.
Time to go on an enemies to lovers relationship with the fly.
You guys get to witness a murder on a podcast. That's a treat. That's not even something we've offered to our Patreon people yet.
Nope. Just for you.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the character you would send an Ifrit to attack.
I would send an Ifrit attack on the Silver Witch because she put Nasir through a lot, and I did not like that for him. This boy, he was just consistently having a bad time. Like, just when he thought he would get hope, he'd just learn another thing and be like, oh, man. Like, he's just really going through it. Especially towards the end of the book, there's just, like, reveal after reveal after reveal for this man, and he can't catch a break. And so he has been basically, he's been abused by his father for most of his life, and his mother's dead. And he never felt that he could love because everyone who he thought loved him hurt him in some way, but it didn't matter because his mother's love has always been real. And turns out his mom is the Silver Witch, and she puts on different faces. So the face that she wore as his mother wasn't even real, wasn't even hers. And to learn that his one true, like, feeling of love that he had in this world was just fake is heartbreaking. And he tells her, you made me into the greatest Hashashin alive and left me in his hands, the Sultan's. You made me into a monster and handed him the leash. And then he realizes, he says, quote, she had been grooming him to take down the lion from the moment of his birth, unquote. And I just think that's so heartbreaking. Emerlyn agrees because she looks like she wants to cry right now. And it's very upsetting. Like, everyone he loved or thought loved him just hurt him in some way. He's never truly felt love, and it hurts. I love him with my whole heart, and I just want him to be like, I just want to hold him and be like, everything's gonna be okay. So did you have a character you would want to set? Are you actually crying?
It makes me sad. Like, it makes me kind of sad, man. Like, you're right. I said that I don't really have any because they're all my babies. But I think you've latched onto a point that is hitting home for me right now, obviously, and that's that, like, you know, Nasir's parents, both by way of magic, kind of abandoned him in a time of his life when he deeply needed to be loved and made him into the person he is. It's not to say he can't come back from that, but I think you're absolutely right that there must have been an alternative that Nasir's mother could have taken part in to make sure that this didn't happen. I mean, like, I know why she did what she did. I'll always say this for every female anti-hero in every book. I know why she did what she did. Okay. But it does hurt, you know? It does hurt.
It hurts.
It hurts. Ow.
Another review that gets, it hurts. Ow.
Ow. I need a Band-Aid for my boo-boo.
All right, on a scale of 1 to 5 magical hearts hidden in a tree, what do you rate We Hunt the Flame?
I said 5 because, as I think I've made very clear, I very much enjoyed this book. I just, like, had a really hard time finding things not to like about it. I kept thinking to myself, well, I usually give my favorite books a 5 out of 5. And then I was like, oh, yeah, this is one of my favorite books then. And now we're here. So, what about you?
I gave it 4 out of 5. For it to be a 5, it has to really hit. Has to really. I mean, this book hits, but it's not one of those that I'm like, I'm treasuring you forever. But I very, very much enjoy it. So maybe I'll bump it up to a 4.5 out of 5. But also, there is the sequel, and I have read it, and I really like it. So stay tuned for us to read that because it's a good one. So 4 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed this book. It's so good.
It is. It's really quite delicious.
That's her dying.
Yeah, that's the flies killed me. I promised you guys a show. I promised you a murder. There it is.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, jokes on the fly. I'm immortal. Speaking of immortals, thank you for turning into our discussion of We Hunt the Flame. Tune in next time where we do become invisible immortals in V.E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.